Good morning, good afternoon, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is
The
longest running
weekly
business talk show on
on
LinkedIn Live,
Now
now
globally
globally
syndicated.
syndicated on the IBGN radio network. We're getting there. Good job, guys. Thank you. Today, we're sharing why your business needs a dose of laugh therapy. We have a special guest, Barry Taylor, to help us with the discussion. Barry's unique background combines the arts, education, and a deep understanding of the therapeutic benefits of laughter. Now he runs Laugh Therapy, an organization committed to researching and providing resources promoting the therapeutic health benefits of humor, laughter, and play. But before we bring Barry on, let's go around and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience. Audience participation is highly encouraged. All right. With that, introductions. Tim, would you kick us off, please?
Yes, my name is Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you. Bertrand, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the team. My name is Bertrand Godillot. As by the sound of it, I'm French. I'm pretty sure you got that by now. I recently joined the team here, and I am also the founder of a company called Odysseus & Co., based in France.
Excellent.
Welcome, Bertrand.
Welcome.
So this is Bertrand's first show. Thank you so much for coming on.
So happy to have you here, Bertrand.
Thank you, guys.
Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite and Tim's business partner. Yes, it's great to have Bertrand joining us today. So we'll be gentle with him, seeing as it's his first show.
This is true. Yes. Excellent. Welcome. Thank you very much. And myself, I'm Rob Durant. I am the founder of Flywheel Results, a proud DLA Ignite partner, and I'm not famous for writing anything.
Yet.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Rob, before you bring on the guest,
yes.
I just want to say to the audience, if there's anybody out there watching us or listening to us, could you say hello to Bertrand for me? Because it is his first show, and I'm trying to put like my arm around him virtually to say, we're looking forward to it.
You heard it in the audience. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So as it happens, we're getting the dose of laugh therapy today because, Tim, as you were explaining, this is the episode that we have which is closest to April Fool's Day. Next week, we will have a rebroadcast of one of our more popular episodes because we'll be observing Good Friday. As it also happens, this will be the third time in 4 weeks where our topic has centered around laughter, humor, and improv. It hasn't been by design, but it has worked out for us. As I was sharing with the team before we came on, I was speaking to my students yesterday after class, and one of them was saying, "Oh, I saw your show on LinkedIn, and I stopped and watched for a bit. I liked it. I usually don't like shows on LinkedIn, but yours was fun." And that's what we're going for here. A little bit of levity and bringing topics of interest to the audience at heart. So I want to take this moment to say to the audience, if you have something to say, we want to hear from you too. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you're welcome to scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live and click on the guest section. Be our guest. We would love to hear from you. All right. I know that our guest is in the green room. There seems to be a little bit of difficulty with the camera, so we'll give him a moment to get set. While we're doing that, I need help vamping.
We've had a good morning from Ingrid.
Ah, excellent. Thank you very much.
So Barry
Ingrid.
did suggest that we kind of think about funny things that we might say. Now, unfortunately, I realized that most of the jokes that I know are not actually suitable for broadcasting. So what I did do was I did a little bit of research and have found a few jokes, which are simple.
Where's Mark?
I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Somehow we lost Adam.
Yeah, so no, I thought that there were a couple that particularly resonated with me. One of them was, "Time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana."
All right.
Infantile. Or how about, where was King David's temple located?
Okay.
Beside his ear.
Thank you for that, Adam. The good news is our guest has joined us. Barry, good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome, Barry.
Hi, Barry.
That took me bloody ages to get up.
Well, we're glad you made it.
I thought I'll reboot everything so there's not any technical issues, and it just took so long.
Oh, well, no worries at all. Barry, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you and how you got here.
Yeah, well, I used to work in education. I spent about 15 years as a teacher, teacher trainer, advanced skills teacher, and I had the most epic burnout. And thought, okay, I need to completely rethink who I am, what I do. And I stumbled across this thing called Ikigai, which is a Japanese theory, which basically translates as your reason for being. So it kind of takes in what it is you're good at, what it is that you can make money from, what your interests are, etc. And I kind of tracked back, and I've had a pretty polemic life. I was homeless as a teenager, had a pretty difficult upbringing. Left school with only 2 qualifications, but in the space of about 6 or 7 years, got myself off the street, into university, got myself a first, then got into Cambridge. That's literally how my life has always gone. So I got quite a long way in education in a very short space of time, and like Daedalus and Icarus just came swooping down as the feathers and the wax all melted. So I realized that the thing that I was most interested in, the thing that I found provided most resilience, was humor and laughter. And I kind of knew that it had a therapeutic benefit, but I didn't really understand it enough. As a teacher, I was a drama teacher, so I was used to the idea of play, the benefits of that. I never kind of worked with kids with the intention of making them actors, but more understanding themselves and developing empathy and so on. So it was a kind of combination of understanding that play had benefits, playing characters, being someone else, or understanding other people, humor, laughter, and education. And so it's kind of an amalgamation of those that led me to where I am now. So what I do really is my own methodology, taking bits of things that I've learned, whether it's from education, from laughter therapy itself, and my business name is Laugh Therapy. I kind of take bits of lots of things. And now I do this as a job for businesses, healthcare, and education.
Excellent.
Barry, can I jump in and ask you a question?
Yeah.
So just to explain, this show goes out on LinkedIn Live and other social networks, which they're available in video. But we're globally syndicated on the IBGN internet radio, which doesn't have video. For those people listening in, how would you describe your shirt?
All right. If you imagine a security guard at an aquarium, that's pretty much me. I'm big and bearded, and I have a bright orange shirt with fish on it. Anybody that's watched Ted Lasso, I'm a big fan of beer goldfish. If anything's bothering you, then the goldfish is the happiest animal in the world because it forgets in 3 seconds. So there's huge koi carp on this very, very loud Hawaiian shirt, and I'm a big bearded guy.
Can you stand up and show us?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that! If we were running a bright shirt competition, you would win.
I had a T-shirt on before that said "Work, play, slay," which would have fitted as well. But I thought, no, I'll wear something a bit louder.
Perfect. So, Barry, I wanted to start with a basic question, if we could, please. How does laughter therapy work? I mean, what are its scientific foundations?
Normally in psychology, the things that are explored and studied the most tend to be the darker elements of psychology. And it's only really been in the last 60 or 70 years, more so in the last 20 or 30, where they've started to recognize the mirthful elements of psychology and neuroscience. Professor William Fry is probably one of the first people who, Freud explored it and did a paper on it, but William Fry is really the champion of it. He came up with this word called gelotology, which I guess is the official title of what I am, a gelotologist. Gelotology comes from the root word gelos, which is the ancient Greek god of laughter. And so it's exploring the therapeutic benefits of laughter. And that's what I do. I research the benefits of laughter to mind, body, and then think of ways of applying that then in the work environment. So if we're looking at what the benefits are, there's a lot of research that's constantly developing about the mental, physical, emotional, social benefits of laughter. So we know that when we laugh, our diaphragm works, our lungs pump, and that turns, obviously, oxygenates the blood, pumps around the body. So that has lots of benefits. But there's a chemical change that happens when we laugh. So if we look at it from the area that we know most, we know that we hear the phrase stress is the biggest killer. So we know that when we get stressed, our anxiety rises, our muscles get tense, all of those things are happening. When we laugh, the production of cortisol and adrenaline, epinephrine, is immediately stemmed when we start to laugh. So there's no more increase in stress when we're laughing. It immediately centers us and brings us mindfully into the present. As well as that, the double benefit of that is that we start to produce serotonin, positive endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, melatonin, loads of chemicals, gamma brain waves. So those are similar to what's produced when we meditate. All of these things make us calmer, make us feel more safe, make us feel more connected, raises our mood, makes us more creative, problem solving. There's so much research that's coming out now of just the simple benefits of laughter. And what I find a really fascinating thing is that when we laugh, we can hear when someone's fake laughing. We know that that's a fake laugh. But our brain doesn't know the difference between a fake and a genuine laugh. So our body reacts in the same way as if we were mirthfully laughing. They call it fake it to make it. So even if you anticipate laughter, if you go and see a stand-up comedian, even if before they come on stage or when they come on stage, they don't make you laugh, your body is already having a chemical change just because you know you're going to something that's going to make you laugh. So all of those chemical changes are happening. So if we can find strategies, ways, particularly at work where mental health is an issue, where we can make people less stressed, create more environments where people are happy, mirthful, playing, joyful, we can solve a massive issue that's going on at the moment with mental health and well-being, which is costing billions. I mean, I've got data I'll share with you in a bit, but it's boring, but we're talking billions. And by 2030, trillions it's going to cost the global economy because of absenteeism, workplace mental health. So looking at ways in which you can turn that into something more joyful and mirthful without it causing a problem for leadership in terms of productivity, then it's certainly something we need to explore, and businesses need to explore as well.
So I'm glad you brought up the workplace, because one of the pressing questions that I have is, how can humor and laughter be effectively integrated into a corporate culture without undermining professionalism?
Judiciously, being aware of when laughter is and isn't appropriate. If I've in the past been invited in to do a workshop, it's normally to pay lip service to boosting mood, morale, team building, etc. It's like, great, we've ticked that box, that's mental health dealt with. And it really does need to start at the top, and it's not just something you do as a one-off. It needs to be a corporate change, and it starts at the top. So getting the leadership to realise that they play a big part in making this change. And it's not just being funny as well. It doesn't start with, well, let's tell some jokes, or because that first of all won't work. Everybody's humour is different. Everybody's taste in humour is different. And what makes us laugh and joyful and happy doesn't just come from comedy. So working out ways in which you can create environments where we can be more creative, problem solving through play and laughter and humour, that doesn't tap into inappropriate times when humour, shouldn't be in place. So if you're having a formal meeting, obviously it wouldn't be wise to go in there dressed as a mariachi band. But nevertheless, it's important at certain times when you know that the content's going to be dry. If you're having a virtual meeting, there's nothing wrong with, in fact, it's advisable to try and engage the people on that rather dry virtual meeting where only two of your learning styles are being met, which is visual and auditory, and that's if you've got the camera on in the first place. Thinking of ways in which you can make it kinesthetic, so more active, more engaging, is going to make the participants in that meeting more engaged. And to someone who's perhaps not comfortable with that, that's going to seem like, well, they're not taking my meeting seriously. We're not going to get through this if we don't get serious. But actually, you'll probably find that if you, for the sake of 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning and getting that right, you'll find you have a more engaged and productive meeting.
So what does an exercise like that to start the meeting look like? Because I think it's safe to say that even the most miserable amongst us likes to have a good laugh from time to time. And, we can feel it doing us good when we have a laugh, particularly when we uncontrollably kind of start giggling and get into the swing of things. So what kind of techniques can we use at the beginning of a meeting to get those benefits going so that people are coming with a more open mindset and more upbeat and more of a can-do and, well, we'll give it a try attitude rather than being that wet blanket in the meeting?
Yeah. There tends to be 3, possibly 5 states rather than traits that people come to a virtual meeting with. So you have, in general, you have consumers, the people that are there, they're just passive, they're listening, they're taking on board what's being said, but they're not really contributing huge amounts to the meeting. Then you have, above that, you'll have contributors, so the people that are involved, they're engaged, they're giving a little bit, they're not being victims to, oh, it's a virtual meeting, which is the flip side to consumers, which is the critics, so the people that kind of, well, this could have been an email rather than a meeting, and not really contributing a lot. Above contributors, you have connectors, so people who are driving the energy in the meeting and going above and beyond, and they're making social connection with other people. And you want as many people to be connectors and contributors in the meeting as possible. So if you come to a meeting and people immediately have got their camera off, they're not engaged. They're probably eating a banana. They're dealing with the dog that's barking. Someone's just come to the door. Because unfortunately, as beneficial having a hybrid work environment is, and we've found this since COVID, it can also be distracting. So getting people to connect right at the beginning is really important. And I think having cameras on and engaged and trying to be kinesthetic is worth those first 3 or 4 minutes. So, and there's various games and starter activities that you can do, and that's kind of where I pick them up from as a teacher, getting kids engaged from the minute they come into the classroom. So one such way you might do it is to get people, I mean, the first thing I did when I signed in here was to put my name, put Barry Taylor, Laugh Therapy. What you can do is perhaps get people at the start of the meeting to change their name. There's the whole thing, the porn star name, where you kind of come up with your dog's, your pet's name and your mother's maiden name or whatever. But they could put their first name and a character trait that their friends say that they are most like. So it might be that they're curious, that they're funny, that they're silly. So name and then character trait. So when people come into the meeting, there's already something that's engaging and a little bit different. One way I like to get people to switch their cameras on is to have about 30 seconds to a minute where the cameras are off. So you're in podcast mode and you're just listening, and allow people in that silence just to get those things out of the way. So have a sip of your drink, have that banana and just think, and then bring the cameras on together. But when you bring the cameras on, you start with a funny fact, or you've got something silly on your head, or there's just in that immediate moment when we go, surprise, we're all on together, there's that moment that immediately breaks what is supposed to be a really dry meeting in a restrictive format. And then that moment of connection and laughter and small engagement between each other can then be put to one side and you can continue with the meeting. But you've already got a mood that's been created that perhaps wouldn't have been there had you just gone straight and with your Slidos or whatever.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because Tim and I often deliver training sessions together, and invariably now it is done remotely. And we'll be messaging each other on Slack whilst it's going on. And if we're in a room where it's Tim and I with our video cameras on and everyone else that hasn't, I'll get a message from Tim saying, this is going to be a tough one, isn't it? Because, it does feel like you're talking into a vacuum and things like that happen. And if there is a mechanism to do that, and that's a really cool idea, I want everybody to have a drink, have a cough, brush your hair, and then put your cameras on, is kind of, it's lighthearted, but it is a way to get them to action what you want. Because, if you're not here with your camera on, Barry, I don't know you. And I don't know you any more at the end of the hour than I do at the beginning.
And you're far less likely to contribute as well. If you know that you're already disengaged by not having the camera on, you're far less likely to engage from an audio perspective as well. So you really are just a spectator. You've become at best a consumer rather than a connector or a contributor. And that's not productive. That's not moving things forward. So trying to find ways to use play and fun and laughter can be, and is proven to be, more beneficial for productivity in the business as well. And also it improves people's well-being. It makes the job feel a little bit more enjoyable. And it's a tweeze then, but if the work feels fun, you get more done. And it's a cliche, but in the main, it's the truth. If you're enjoying what you do, you're more likely to go that extra mile for the business and for each other, for your teams as well.
Yeah. If we can just pick up on Mark's comment.
I was going to do that now.
So Mark is our resident comedian, Barry.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Mark Howison says, I thought all these voices in my head meant I was crazy, but one of them is a laugh therapist, and he says I'm funny. And then Mark asks, Adam, is the cushion behind you made from the same material as Barry's shirt?
Almost.
So it's not great for radio. It is funny.
Adam is currently holding up the cushion, and it does look
worryingly similar.
And Mark also filed for a name change. Do you want to read that out?
Sure. Mark says, I actually filed for a name change. My name is now legally Joe. but for some reason, people stop taking me seriously. They think I'm Joe King.
King, yeah.
Boom.
We met it now.
He is our resident comedian.
All right, so
Thanks, Mark.
thank you for that, Mark. That leads me to a question around leadership. You had mentioned leadership earlier, Barry. In what
Yeah.
ways can leaders model the behavior of the use of humor to foster a better working environment?
I think start with the environment is probably the best thing. So look at the space. They call it, I read somewhere a phrase called neuroarchitecture, and it was by Dr. Bernie Warren, an Australian clown doctor, actually. And he did a really interesting TED talk, and this phrase.
Oh, hold on a second. Did you say clown doctor?
Yeah. Are you familiar with them?
No.
They're the people
So
that go
let's
round the
explore
world.
that, please.
Yeah, let's backtrack.
What's a clown doctor?
A clown doctor is someone who's a medical professional, either a senior nurse or a doctor, who will go around the wards, not always the children's wards, it's the adult wards as well, and will carry out their duties, but dressed as a clown, doing physical slapstick comedy. Obviously not tripping over and pulling equipment down, but engaging with them. They have props, they have a red nose, they have clown hair. Again, playing into that idea of calming people down, reducing their stress and anxiety, which you have in a hospital environment, producing these chemicals. Serotonin is a fantastic painkiller, and there's research already shown that pain medication from in a trial with people who took part in a laughter program, those that took part in the program required 10% less pain medication than those that didn't. So they've really kind of tapped into this idea that making people feel relaxed, mirthful, laughing, it actually has benefits for the health. So they dress as clowns, and it happens all over the world. If you've seen the film Patch Adams,
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. I mean, that's a perfect example. And Patch Adams is a real person. In fact, if you watch the film, you can see Patch towards the end of the film. There's a scene where Robin Williams is stood in front of the committee and he's justifying his reasons for not losing his medical license. And if you look just over Robin Williams' shoulder, there's a grey-haired chap with a beard, and that's Patch Adams. He's actually an extra in the film. And that inspired a lot of people to engage with this idea of laughter and play for health. So go back to your point, this phrase of neuroarchitecture was something that came from Dr. Bernie Warren, and it's getting, in this case, in a hospital, to think about how does the architecture, the interior of the hospital or the ward, of the waiting room, make the patient, or in a children's ward, the family who are obviously concerned about the well-being of the child and their anxieties. How does that make them feel? Does it make them calm? Does it calm the child down? And I think that that's something that you can apply into the workplace as well. Thinking about, are people in little grey booths and there's just nothing to engage with, and everywhere they look it's just bland, boring bits of paper pinned up on pinboards and so on. That's not going to improve people's well-being. It's not going to engage people in their work. It's not going to make them happy to spend a third of their life there. So thinking about how you can make that environment more engaging is a good start. There's a company that I work with who were a call center, and we looked at different ways in which that we could make that environment more engaging. And so we kind of explored, well, what's unique about this workplace? What could we do that's not disruptive? So we found, well, nobody can see it because we've got headsets on. We ring people up and we say, you've ordered this catalogue, you haven't bought anything for a year, would you still like to send it out? If not, we'll cancel it. And that's simply what it is. And there's a script on the screen, and so they just talk from their headset. And we kind of realised that we can wear what we want. We can do whatever we want. No, they can't see us, but we're happy and we're engaging with each other. So people brought in props, a red nose, a funny hat, or whatever, a wig. And at certain points, you kind of look across as you're dealing with a customer, and you'll see someone who's got a bright green wig on, or a silly nose, or a rubber chicken in the hand. And as silly and as cheap as the comedy was, it just created that smile as you look across at that person that makes that 8 hours of repetitive calls just that little bit easier, reduces that stress as well. Um, so thinking about the environment you're in and how you can make that more enjoyable. If you've got a common work area, I'm thinking back to when I was a teacher. There was one school that I was at were fantastic at this. You walk into the staff room having had a really difficult year 8, year 9 class, and you're tearing your hair out. I think I need a coffee. And you go in there, and it was a hive of activity. There was they got under those big Jenga things in the staff room, so people were playing Jenga in there. You've got pinboard. On the pinboard, people who've taken like secret photos of staff around the school and then put them on there, and they've got like a caption competition. So you put in a funny caption that goes with that member of staff. So you go in there and read the captions. People would leave little practical jokes in people's pigeonholes and stuff, and you go in there and it'd be something funny in your pigeonhole. And in that 10, 15 minutes of grabbing a coffee, you're engaging with things that have immediately reduced that stress and anxiety. And you're going out with a smile on your face, ready to face the next lot of scropes that you've got to deal with for an hour. So, yeah, thinking about your environment, the space that you're in is a really easy start because it's not about being funny. It's just start with fun. Just try and reconnect with your child of what made you happy because you've never been more creative than when you were a child. You learn so much in a short space of time, and it cannot be underestimated how much of that is due to the conditions that we had, that we've lost somewhere between leaving school and getting married, having a mortgage, and life kicking in. And we've got to reconnect with that again.
We have a question from the audience. Mark Cowson asks, Barry, do you use your job title laugh therapist when securing work? Do you find it difficult to be taken seriously?
I used to, so I don't use it. I set up the business as laugh therapy because, like you said with clown doctors, people aren't even familiar that there is a thing called a laugh therapist. Some people are now starting to be aware of things like a play therapist or an art therapist or a drama therapist that deals with, crisis conditions. So people don't really understand that and don't understand the benefits that laughter has. It's not just about laughing and don't we feel better, but there are medical benefits to it as well and social benefits in terms of teamwork and connection and creativity. So using the phrase when people don't understand it immediately is going to do that, and I have found that in the past. So I started to use the phrase gelotologist because that starts a question straight away. You stick ologist on the end of anything, you're starting to be moving down the road of being taken a little bit more seriously. And it is a genuine form of research. And so you get that conversation, go, well, what's gelotologist? So you explain what gelotology is. And they go, oh, so it has therapeutic benefits. Yes, it does, and you can explain it. But more often than not, it's consultant, public speaker, professional trainer are the ones that I use. And then when I'm in there, I can explain the methods that I use. But more often than not, the work that I've had is people coming to me saying, I've got this group of people who they don't get on, they hate each other, morale's at its lowest, can you do something funny? And they expect you to go in there and just be funny and tell jokes. And they look disappointed at me initially when I say, I'm not here to make you laugh, I'm not a stand-up comedian, I just facilitate laughter. And so over the course of a few hours, or if it's a longer period of time, I'll kind of come up with activities, strategies, tips to make the workplace more engaging and to get them laughing with each other. Because ultimately, I don't want to make them laugh and then go away and they're saying, well, that was funny or not. I want them to connect with each other, and I want that to carry on afterwards as well. So it's really about them connecting with each other. And I did say at the start, if people can have jokes. And the reason I said that is because people expect you to have a joke and make them laugh. And I always have a moment within my workshops where I get people to come or produce a joke or share a joke. And we find out very quickly that humor is a very personal, individual thing. Everybody has a different taste in humor, style of humor. Some people like slapstick, some people like parodies, some people like, Schadenfreude, and people, You've Been Framed, or America's Funniest Animals, and people falling off swings and stuff like that. And other people don't find that funny. So going in and trying to be funny is not the way, because some people it will land with and they'll buy into it, and other people like, I'm not comfortable with this, it's not what I want to do. So reframing it, and so it's not about being funny, but about being active, being more kinesthetic, playing, allowing yourself to engage in something that's active, without fear of having to perform in some way.
So can businesses measure the ROI? Can they measure the impact of integrating laughter into their operations?
Yeah, I found some research actually. I'm just scrolling through here to find where it was. Yeah, so here's some research. I'll read it out. Some findings about how humor and laughter can improve productivity. So first of all, laughter and productivity. A study highlighted by Harvard Business Review found that after watching comedy clips, employees were 10% more productive than those who didn't. Humor and competence. The same study also noted that cracking jokes at work can make individuals appear more competent. I don't know if that makes them more competent. A positive humor in the workplace. A meta-analysis indicated that positive humor is associated with enhanced work performance, satisfaction, work group cohesion, health, coping effectiveness, as well as decreased burnout, stress, work withdrawal. Play and creativity. Play is known to encourage divergent thinking, crucial for creativity, can increase productivity by providing regular mental breaks, which allow you to then, when you revisit the work, you're going back at 100% again rather than gradually decreasing. It's hard to put a price on that in the same way as Deloitte did a study that said that the impact that mental health disorders in the workplace will affect the global economy will be $16 trillion by 2030. Now, obviously, that's a prediction. So again, it's not an accurate amount, but it's based on trends. But what I can say is productivity loss at the moment, unresolved depression can lead to a 35% reduction in productivity. It contributes to an annual loss of $210 billion to the US economy. And in the UK, poor mental health costs UK employers $56 billion a year, with higher staff turnover, poor mental health, citing reasons for leaving the job. So if we know that stress does that, and absenteeism and mental health problems, burnout, people leaving businesses because they can't take it anymore and they want to work somewhere else, they're not happy with the toxic work environment, etc. Then looking at ways in which we can reverse that, scientific ways in which we know we can reduce anxiety, burnout, stress, really needs to be taken seriously. And there was some research, which I don't have, that said for every pound spent on programs like this, there is a £5 return on investment. I don't know how valid that research is, but it's obviously, I did stumble across it a couple of times. And that's a UK statistic. So, I mean, it makes sense from a health perspective, from a common sense perspective, and clearly it's starting to look like from a cost perspective as well, that taking, some form of play, laughter, happiness, well-being, beyond just, well, let's have a yoga class, or let's have someone come and do a Tai Chi for an hour, is not to discredit those things. It's a tick box, and it's not really looking at the culture of the business from the top down. So if I go in, I like to kind of go in, really get an idea of what's going on in the business, come up with some strategies that fit that workplace and those teams, and then revisit after 2 or 3 months and see where we're at and whether we can take that a stage further then.
Larry, just a quick question. I like very much the idea of going back, connecting back to who you were as a kid. And I also understand that you can't really learn humor. So how do you manage? What's the approach when you've got someone who doesn't want to go back to who he was as a kid, and on top of that, he's a very serious guy, doesn't have any sense of humor. How do you can that be one of your customer, by the way? Maybe it's completely off
Well,
target.
that's it. I mean, are they ever going to likely to contact me in the first place? Is one thing. I actually refused the only job that I refused was a group, a hotel group, and a very traditional group. All of the senior executives were, in their mid to late 60s. I was told they were very stern, conservative, not into fun at all. But HR think that this is something that they need, and I thought, yeah, you think they need it, but do they think that they need it, and are they going to be receptive? Well, I felt like I felt like Russell Crowe walking into the gladiatorial ring, and I pulled out. I threw a sticky and pulled out, and I don't do that, but I just thought, you know what, this is just going to be horrific because I'm going to go in there, and not only is it going to be horrific for me, it's going to be horrific for them. It's going to be horrific for the poor person in HR that's booked this. It's almost going to feel like they've played a practical joke on them, and I just thought this is just not going to work. So I think having people that are receptive to it is really important. But I think if I sensed that this was something that was going to be a problem, I would start a little bit lighter than that. I wouldn't go straight in and get all the props and and the silliness out of the way, but just engage in simple activities, name the kind of icebreakers that you would expect to find at a genuine meeting and work up from there. So it might just be a name game. So I play in order to prove the point that anxiety and stress and pressure can create problems, and being able to relax and calm makes us more productive. I normally do a name game around the table, but it's timed. So the idea is that we start with a particular person, they say their name, and then you go around the circle. As soon as that person says that name, they say their name, they say their name, and all the way around. Once you get round the circle, we stop the clock and we see what the time is, and then we put more pressure and say, right, you've got to do it a second faster this time. And you just keep doing that. And you find that as people are doing that, they actually find it quite funny, and they start to laugh because pressure makes you laugh. Stress and anxiety can make you laugh as well. And that's often a good starting point. So I say, okay, right, we're going to do it again. We're going to go the opposite way around, but this time I want you to say your name and I want you to stand up, sit down. So it's almost like a Mexican way. So as they're starting to interact with this game, they're looking around and seeing all these heads popping up and down. And you're starting to kind of soften them into something that they'll eventually get into. You can't go too far, but you can start to get them off of their chair and engaging with the idea of, actually, I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit calmer. I'm finding this quite enjoyable. Okay, what's next? And I always give people the option to sit out if they want to as well. And that comes from being a drama teacher. I was very conscious of the fact that a lot of the younger kids didn't have the choice. It was on their timetable whether they wanted to do it or not. I used to enjoy teaching exam groups because they've opted for it, but I was always very conscious of the students that were going in there and feeling that they had to perform. So I don't do a lot of laughter yoga, for example, which is something that some people might be familiar with, which is this idea of fake it to make it. You go in there and you laugh and you do exercises. And there is a benefit to it, the stretching exercises, the breathing exercises, the laughter exercises. But what I've often found is that in the first 10, 15 minutes, there's a real self-consciousness of being in a room of people that you're not used to expressing yourself in that way with. And although they leave that session feeling better, the likelihood of them wanting to keep coming back is reduced because of how they felt in that first 10, 15 minutes. So I really do think that a soft entry into it is really, really important.
So I was going to ask you, when you were talking earlier, have you ever done one of these for a team where they just have been so incredibly unresponsive? So, they've basically been sitting with their arms folded and you've tried to get them to engage, but they're just not having any of it. And it's been, it's been like talking to an audience that wishes they were in a different theatre. So what's the worst thing that's happened?
Right. I hope this person isn't watching. I'm pretty sure that they won't be. But
nobody's watching. Don't worry.
Rob, just to be on the safe side.
Right. Actually, they won't have a problem with me saying this. But I did a workshop for a group for fostering and adoption. So their social service team, they were the ones who were the first responders. They would go into a really tough environment and take the children out of that environment, put them into a safe space, and organise fostering and adoption for them whilst their problems were being sorted out with their parents. So it was a tough job that they probably took home with them. I was told the remit was they hate each other. If you can, by the end of 2 hours, stop them killing each other, the meeting will have been a success. I thought, okay, this is going to be a tough one. The first 10 minutes was the toughest 10 minutes I've had in my life, including 15 years as a teacher in some pretty tough comprehensive schools. Immediately when I got in there, oh, you're the guy that's going to make us laugh. On and tell us something funny. I thought, they're not going to like it when I tell them I'm not going to be funny, but they're going to do the funny. So there was a real resistance from the start. It was a kind of gone, kind of attitude, and so it was one of those. It was. I realised in the planning of it that I needed to work on teamwork, on a team identity first of all, and then building up that team ethic, and what connects them. So I realised that they care about kids. That's one connection. They clearly don't trust each other. There's a lot of kind of backstabbing and sniping. So I needed to work on making them trust each other. So there was trust exercises, there was team building or team identity. So those were two things. So when I'm thinking about my strategies for doing that, I'm looking at those kind of activities. So I'm harking back to my days as a drama teacher. But within that, I'm thinking, okay, how can I make these activities mirthful, enjoyable, engaging, so that then they're starting to laugh? Because people drop their guards when they laugh, particularly if it's not disparaging humour, negative humour. So then people think, oh, you're laughing, we've got a similar sense of humour, you're all right, you are. And you're starting to make ground. So one activity I did was a thing called, and it's from a practitioner called Augustus Boal, who came up with a practitioner came up with a thing called Theatre of the Oppressed. And it's a lot of kind of improvisational based games. And this one was called The Hunter and the Protector. And you've got people walking around the space. In their head, they've got to pick one person in the room who is someone that they are hunting. All right. And the idea is that they are walking around the space, following that person, but from a distance where the person who you're following doesn't know you're following them. So everybody's kind of walking around the space, following somebody that you don't know who's following you. At a certain point in the game, you change it. It's okay, there's another person in the room who's your protector. And you have to make sure that that person is between you and the person you're hunting all the time. As the game develops, you get people to connect with who was their hunter and who was their protector. And that moment when people put their hands on the shoulder and say, I was hunting you and I was protecting you. And just that physical thing of closing the space and them touching each other. And the moment of them turning around and saying, oh, I didn't realize it was you. Oh, you were protecting me. There's a moment of engagement, of closing down people's circle of comfort and inviting people in. That had a massive effect. So when we talked at the end about how that workshop went, it was the best of the last 10, 15 minutes of a workshop. That was the best I ever had. And it was quite, there were one or two people that were quite emotional in that, because there were people in the room that they felt were bullying them, that they couldn't connect with, that they didn't trust, and realised their mind was playing tricks on them, and they completely misjudged that person. And they'd allowed this to build and develop. I'm sure that afterwards, a week later, they probably hated each other again. That moment of realisation that we've got something in common, you've got my back, I've got yours, we can connect, at least on this level, is really important. So, yeah, you get ones that are really, really tough, but a lot of it is in the planning. You've really got to think about, okay, what do they need to get from this?
Fantastic.
That sounds like a great thing to do, Barry.
Yeah, great.
Barry, I didn't want to let you go before touching on this. What are some common pitfalls to avoid when introducing humor into the workplace?
Don't try to be funny. And I make the mistake of doing that because of the expectation that you're going to go in there and make people laugh. You end up trying a bit too hard. I put shirts on for exactly that reason. You can sometimes try a bit too hard, and that doesn't work. So I say try, particularly if you're trying to include it into the workplace as a leader, a team leader, try not to be funny. Just try to think of ways to create fun. That might be arranging a team building exercise. Let's go out to a comedy club after work, or let's put this in the staff room. I want everybody to contribute to this. Something that you send out at the bottom of your email, underneath your email signature, just a funny little quote that you put in every week that you change. It starts small, and find ways just to be. One rule of humour is that one type of humour is incongruous humour. So the absurdity, things that you expect to happen, and then something else happens that kind of confuses you. So when you put a funny game as a starter into a virtual meeting, people aren't expecting that, and it's a bit silly. And that incongruity of it creates a bit of mirthful laughter. But also the element of surprise can create humour as well. So doing things that are surprising or a little bit absurd is often, people don't expect leadership to do this. So if you've decided as a leadership team, listen guys, we're all going to come into there and we're going to dress like this, they're not going to know. And so when they walk across the car park and they're dressed like a bunch of idiots, everybody's going to buy into that straight away, because here's a group of people who we think take themselves too seriously, who now are not taking themselves seriously, and you've reduced that hierarchy that was there, the them and us, because suddenly the them are a little bit more like us. So thinking of ways to just be a little bit more fun and closing some of those barriers between leadership and teams is a really good starting point as well.
Excellent.
Adam and I went to Joplin in the States to see a partner of ours, and one of the days that we were there, it was my birthday, and our partner there, the CEO, Priscilla McKinney, she says has a rule in her company that whenever it's your birthday, you can make up a rule, and everybody has to comply with that rule. So she basically said in advance to me and said, it's your birthday. What do you want to do? What rule do you want? So I said, I want everybody to wear stupid shoes.
Right. Yeah.
So I went out and bought a pair of tiger feet slippers off eBay. And they were what I wore all day. But everybody else, they all had to wear stupid shoes.
Well, you probably know, Tim, this might happen in other countries as well, but we have Christmas jumper day as
we do
get close to Christmas. And just if you think about that as a concept, people coming in with the most disgusting Nordic jumpers with, a really badly knitted design of a reindeer on it. It's the most disgusting piece of fashion, but it just creates that day of silliness. That really, if we look at it, doesn't disrupt the day, actually increases our connection as a team as we, allow ourselves to be laughed at and laugh at each other in a safe way. That's very similar to that idea of, having some funny shoes on, or, wearing a funny hat day or whatever. Those are the kind of strategies that I would suggest when you go in. So you look at the things that have worked before that we know work, and look at things that you could do that won't necessarily disrupt, and could add the level of mirth and reduction of stress that you're looking for.
I think that, I don't know about you, Adam, but I think that what happened was that Adam and I were kind of dropped into, small town Joplin in the States. Here we are with our British accents, sounding like James Bond. And all of a sudden we termed this one day with silly shoes on, but it did actually, all of a sudden there was a connection. We were laughing at each other and with each other and to each other, and because you're in control of how silly you want to be when you're picking your shoes.
Yeah.
And there was in effect there was this camaraderie that was immediately created with the team, where we kind of all fitted in. There is a photo somewhere. We were taking some photos that day, and there is a photo somewhere of the whole of the company with their silly shoes on. I've got my tiger feet on.
Yeah, I bought a pair of clown shoes. But
You did.
One of the things that was really interesting was that this was a small, tight-knit company, and we were working with a couple of the people there, but a couple of people had come in specially for that. And one of the things that it gave you was when you went to go and get a cup of coffee, I'm standing next to you, Barry, and I look down and you've got stupid shoes on, and I can go, oh, look at those. And you can go, yeah, they may be stupid, but look at yours. And
Yeah.
actually, it was a great icebreaker for beginning a conversation with someone.
Yeah, it's a
Because it
social
was completely harmless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a fear that business leaders have, and it's the same fear that often traditional kind of old school teachers have as well, is that we're going to lose control if we allow them to laugh. That we're not going to be able to rein this back in again. And I think so long as you're in control of that and are a big part of that, there's going to be no erosion to your authority whatsoever. As long as it's not too self-deprecating. If it becomes too self-deprecating, then people are starting to look at you as somebody that's weak and a little bit silly and so on. So you do, like I said before, it's judicious. You really need to think about whether it's appropriate and how far you go with it. But the root is that if leadership are leading this, and it starts at the top, and if you are in control of how much people laugh at you, then that's a really good starting point. Instead of putting the emphasis on those that are struggling with their mental health or their stress, say, okay, here's something for you guys to engage with. Because really, the problem starts there. And until you start there, you're not going to sort there.
Barry, this has been great. How can people get in touch with you?
My website is laughtherapy.lol. So not laughtherapy.com. Laughtherapy.lol. LOL. Laugh out loud.
That's
I
fantastic.
paid for that topic. So yeah, that's where you can find me, and there's information strategies and so on there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, Barry Taylor, Laugh Therapy. You'll find me quite easily, and I'm happy to connect and talk to people on there as well. That's my main social media. And yeah, and I don't just do UK as well. I work, over in the States and Australia as well, because I do a lot of virtual stuff. So looking at strategies, and maybe on another occasion we'll do some games and exercises that we can weave into a.
We'd love to do that, Barry.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we'll do that then.
So we now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights and beyond the show insights, as well as reminders of upcoming episodes. Scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of our panelists, to our guest Barry, to our audience, thank you all for being a part of today's episode, and we'll see you next time.